Ready? Okay, I'm Molly Maffio, and I'm going to be going ahead and discussing about becoming a mental health counselor. Some of the things that we'll be discussing today will be therapeutic alliance, theoretical orientation, my personal training and background, my aspirations for future work, and what I'm looking forward to working on in my field work, and then, of course, establishing a counselor identity. So one of the first things is the therapeutic alliance, which is really establishing therapeutic rapport with the patients or the clients. There's three main things with this. It's congruence, unconditional positive regard, and of course empathy. So with congruence, that's really about counselor authenticity, being comfortable with yourself. As a counselor, we're expecting people to divulge really personal information, and they're not going to be comfortable doing that if we're not exuding an authentic personality. We need to have unconditional positive regard. So we can't make people feel judged, especially if you're a counselor and you're working somewhere where there's milieu management and you're considered an authority figure. You really have to find that happy middle ground between being an authority figure and judging someone, right? We can't do both. And then there's course empathy. So that's validating someone. That's making them feel like there's nothing wrong with them and they have every right to feel the way that they do. One of the things I do a lot with establishing therapeutic rapport, believe it or not, I always have my nails done a lot, and I have really cool gym shoes, and I work a lot with adolescents. So just taking that 2 minutes to talk to them about what you get your nails done or where you get your shoes makes them feel comfortable with you as a professional. So, at the present time, okay, you're just talking about shoes, but maybe a couple hours into your shift, they get a really bad phone call from mom or dad, and then they're comfortable coming up to you and saying, "Hey, Molly, I really need someone to talk to. I'm really agitated. I just got a bad call from my mom." So that's one way that you go about being authentic and really establishing that relationship and that rapport with that client. Moving on to theoretical orientation, my background is I have a bachelor's in psychology from University of Phoenix, and I've also had a lot of experience with adolescents, both in my current position as well as working for Teen Panel when I was 18. So I have a lot of experience with high-risk teens, and I think that that plays into my theoretical orientation. I'm really passionate about cognitive behavioral therapy because I like being a teacher, but I like being a collaborator as well, and that's how the counselor in CBT is viewed, a teacher and a collaborator. I want to teach you skills, but I want to make sure that you're a very active participant in the therapeutic process. Short-term or solution-focused brief therapy really focuses on helping the client learn the skills that they already have. So that's going to be really important for me as well. Person-centered therapy, my client will always be maintained as the expert of his or her situation. Feminist therapy really focuses on challenging societal norms rather than beating ourselves up over what the issue is. And I think because I want to specialize with adolescents in the LGBT community, challenging societal norms is really going to come into play a lot. And finally, I really love narrative therapy. I love having someone really give me the story of their life and kind of the turning points and main events for them. And if those are negative situations, really working with them to reframe those situations so they can have a more positive outlook. A lot of times changing perspectives can be a big key to change, which kind of brings us to my personal philosophy of change. I love the idea of changing perspectives, and I also really like cognitive behavioral therapy, which we all know kind of stems from REBT. So we're really focusing a lot on behavior, emotions, and thoughts and how they're connected. So at the hospital where I currently work, we teach the clients a lot about the cognitive behavioral triangle. So as you can see, we have emotions, Up top, we have behavior down here, and we have thoughts over here. So let's say you're feeling worthless, right? A lot of our depressive patients are struggling with this. If we're feeling worthless, our thoughts are, it's probably not worth me getting out of bed in the morning. And then our behavior is to isolate and stay in bed. So in order to, change this behavior, change the thoughts and the emotions, we got to change the behavior, because isolating ourselves is just going to reinforce those negative emotions and negative thought patterns. So using behavioral activation and deciding to get up, and let's say we go babysit for someone that day, right? We're going to, think that, hey, there's a purpose getting up, and we're going to feel accomplished after the day. We're going to feel like we helped someone. We're going to feel that sense of purpose. So it's really important to help our patients or our clients understand the connection between their behavior, thoughts, and emotions. So that's why I love the philosophy of change from CBT. With my training, I have an undergraduate degree in psychology from University of Phoenix, and then I'll be graduating with my master's in mental health counseling from Capella. My background, I have a various background with teens and conducting groups, mainly focusing on safe sex practices. We really targeted some high-risk teen populations, educated about the realities of teen parenthood, advocated for abstinence, but all of us were teen mothers ourselves, so we also were kind of sending the message that, hey, this is a very difficult road, but if it does happen to you, there is community support, and it's not the end of the world. So that adds to my strength, which is group therapy, which I've been doing at the hospital I currently work at. I work at an inpatient psychiatric facility, and it's divided by the different patient populations. So we have high-functioning adults, lower-functioning adults. The high-functioning adults are dealing with depression, anxiety, some substance abuse. Lower-functioning adults are typically active schizophrenics, a lot of psychosis. Very high manic episodes is usually in that unit, so we separate the units in order to give everyone individualized attention. I also work a lot on the adolescent unit. I work with the eating disorder patients and self-injury patients who need a different protocol as well, and then we have a specific unit for detox. So it's really nice. I've been able to work with multiple populations, a lot of great people, a lot of great networking. Really developed a knack for group therapy, especially psychoeducational skills groups. I do that very well, but there's not a whole lot of process going on, so that's going to be something I'm looking forward to working on when it comes time to do field work. Some other things about working in an emergency stabilization facility is that you're really focusing on the patient's safety rather than their psychological needs, which, if you think about it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety needs need to be fulfilled before moving towards self-acceptance and self-esteem and those kinds of things. So a lot of your day is going to be taken up by doing precautionary rounds, where you're literally putting your eyes on the patients every 15 minutes and then writing the location of them. And this is to ensure that the patient is not inflicting harm on themselves or anyone else. You're also doing belongings checks and room checks to make sure contraband doesn't get on the unit, and contraband can be anything from a paper clip that someone can self-injure with to a string that someone with suicidal ideation can strangle themselves with. So we have to be very, very careful. Because of this, all of these are very, very important, but this is why I'd like to move toward a partial hospitalization program or an intensive outpatient program, because I do love group therapy, but I also want to work with people on a longer term basis, because the stay in emergency stabilization is typically about a week, give or take the individual. But working in a partial hospitalization will open me up to more case management, more treatment planning, as well as still allow me the opportunity to run group therapy. I'm also interested in becoming an online educator, so I can help other undergraduate students understand how the materials are going to be applicable to them in the field, because I didn't really have that when I was doing my undergrad work, and I think that would have been helpful. And then I also want to work in private practice, because I really want to work with people on a long-term basis, work with them one-on-one with their goals, because that's something you're not really able to do with group therapy. So I think a combination of the three will allow me to have a nice work-life balance as well as fulfill my financial goals, because while none of us get into this field to make a lot of money, maintaining our financial standards at home is going to be important for reducing our stress levels and being able to be an effective counselor. In terms of field work, I really want to focus on case management, treatment planning, and assessments, because those are areas that I don't really have a lot of experience with, so I want to learn and really master those skills. I want to continue to build on my processing and conceptualization skills, because again, with emergency stabilization, you're helping people acquire the necessary skills, ensuring that they are safe, returning them to their baseline, and then they're discharging and being referred for more long-term treatment. For my counselor identity, I really want to work with the LGBT community as well as adolescents. As an adolescent, I had behavioral issues, and I was never validated, and it was just not a good combination. So I think that now that I'm a parent of 2 children, I understand where parents are coming from. However, I also understand what it was like being an adolescent who was constantly told that, you know, you're wrong, you're this, you're that, and the blame was just pushed on you rather than you being validated. So I think I can provide a nice middle ground between parents and adolescents, and helping them, you know, kind of reach their goals. The LGBT community I really empathize with, because while I'm not myself LGBT, I am in an interracial relationship, so I understand the ignorant stares, I understand the ignorant comments, I understand certain family members, co-workers, friends that don't accept your relationship, and while they may be looking and saying different things to me and my fiance than they would be to LGBT individuals, I do understand that just because you're being yourself, you're being discriminated against. So I think that I can be very helpful for these clients. Professionally, I plan to join NAMI to learn more about advocacy, specifically what I can do in my community. I also plan to join the Illinois Counselor Association as well as the ACA. I really want to attend seminars that are specific to issues facing the adolescent community as well as the LGBT community. And joining these organizations is going to allow me to increase my multicultural competence. And I mean, this goes from, you know, when you say multicultural competence, this is from people's disability status, their age, their socioeconomic status, all the way to their race and their ethnicity, and whether they come from a collectivist background or individualistic. So there's a lot of components that you really have to be aware of when you're counseling multicultural clients. You really can't be afraid to ask questions. You're not going to look incompetent. You're going to look like you're ensuring, you know, accuracy. And in my experience, clients really respect that. Some other ways to increase your self-awareness, in my case anyways, I read a lot of professional development books and articles, and I watch documentaries. I just watched a documentary about transgender individuals, and I learned a few things. One transgender male explained that the word transgender is fine, and the word transgendered with an ED at the end is offensive. And he said that using the ED implies that something was wrong with you or wrong with the way you were born. So I'm really glad that I saw that, because I would have never wanted to accidentally put an ED on that and, you know, accidentally offend somebody. I also learned about a stereotype that I did not know existed. A transgender female was sexually assaulted, and she went to the hospital in order to report the incident and get, you know, a rape kit and everything. And the nurse was very sympathetic. And then when they went to do the rape kit, she explained that it would be, done vaginally and everything. And then the transgender female explained that she didn't have vaginal genitalia. So the nurse then asked how she was assaulted. She explained through the anal cavity. And the nurse then accused her of being a prostitute, not getting paid, and now trying to take revenge on the customer who didn't pay. So while this was very disturbing information, I'm glad that I understand stereotypes and I understand specific discrimination that occurs with this community, because this is going to be very helpful and very important to me as a counselor who specializes in LGBT in the future. When reading the being a therapist, we had to read about some unfinished business and identify some issues that we have with potential clients. And the topic of compromised empathy kind of stuck out to me a lot, because I'm working to overcome this with the subject of substance abuse, because my ex abused substances. So it was a very difficult situation, very dangerous situation for both myself and my daughters. So when I encounter clients who have substance abuse issues, I have to be very, very alert in order to maintain my empathy and maintain, my professional presence in the moment. I need to know where to draw the line when, asking about implications for family, because my main focus needs to be on helping this individual process the thoughts and emotions associated with what he or she is going through, rather than concerning myself with how this person has inflicted, harm or burden on the family. One of the things that's really helped me, I read a trilogy series by Ellen Hopkins, the Crank trilogy, and the first book detailed how it was told by the perspective of the addict, and it detailed how the individual began using substances. The second book took place after the individual had a baby, got out of rehab, and kind of how she relapsed back into using substances. And then the third book was told from the addict's perspective, as well as her now 5 kids' perspectives. So it really gave everybody involved a chance to have a voice, and it helped soften me and gave me a way to see the addict's perspective without inflicting judgment. So that was very helpful, and I continue to kind of work on that and work with an internal dialogue to keep myself present in the moment, because I don't want to turn away clients who use substances. It's a very common problem. It's very comorbid with a lot of other conditions. And honestly, it's a maladaptive coping skill that a lot of people really are working very diligently toward overcoming. So that's my plan. Those are my fieldwork aspirations. That's my theoretical orientation, philosophy of change, and how I establish therapeutic rapport. Thank you.